prevention revolution is saying, let's put prevention at the top of the agenda. We know we've been doing well in terms of treatment, and the treatment cascades are very bold. It's 90-90-90. That is, 90% of South Africans should know their status. 90% of those who know their status should be on treatment. 90% of those who are on treatment must be virally suppressed. We don't have similar cascades for prevention. So we need to have some rhetoric around prevention. You know, as a country, we have roughly about 55 million citizens. So we still have around 48 million HIV negative South Africans. We need to keep them negative.
We have to stop new infections. So that's an absolute priority, and the Department of Health has also recognized that as a priority.
South Africa needs a prevention revolution because of the high increased rate of HIV rate among adolescent girls and young women, especially because there's been already tried methods, there's already been messaging that's been going around. So it's not like prevention is something that young women and people in general are not aware of, but we need a more enforced method that will allow us to reduce this rate by the year 2022.
PrEP is a new and exciting technology which we're now very seriously trying to scale up. We've introduced it into higher risk populations initially, and we're looking very carefully at how well that uptake has gone. And now we're looking at new populations of adolescent girls and young women who in our setting in South Africa are at highest risk of HIV infection. So there's a lot of work to be done on what we call PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's basically using antiretrovirals for prevention.
We now have test and treat, as you know. If under test and treat, 90% of the people who are HIV positive are put on treatment, and 90% of those who are on treatment are virally suppressed, that is a very important prevention.
If we take the word revolution on its own, it requires action. It requires responsibility. It requires collective effort. And that's exactly what we want. We are very clear that we want people to prevent new HIV infections. And part of it is that the infrastructure that is put in place, everyone in SANAC, which is a multi-sectoral stakeholder, government, civil society, development partners, and private sector must play a role in this regard.
How do we ensure that the communities own the prevention? The community voice needs to be very loud, and the communities know what works for them. How do we ensure then that we actually have context-specific approaches in terms of prevention?
We want everyone to be involved. You don't have to be in the National AIDS Council to be part of the HIV prevention revolution. You can do it in your own community, in your school. Talk about how do we prevent HIV. In your church, as a pastor, talk about how do we prevent HIV in our churches and various spaces. How do we support, how do we volunteer our time to support to building a better health system, to building a better education system, a better justice system. That's what we want to see.
My role as a young woman who represents She Conquers is to ensure that I preach the whole spirit of the prevention revolution. I make sure that young women feel and identify with the prevention revolution and understand that it's actually for their good more than anything. This is not about all the health ministers that preach about it, but about our future. And as young people, we need to take charge and encourage each other to have a better and brighter future.
The prevention revolution as a man is to lead by example, you know. We as guys, we always come out there, we're like, we are men, yeah, we are the head of the house, you know, and it's time that we show that, you know. And for me, when I went to go circumcise, my biggest drive behind that was to protect my family, to protect my wife from infections to cervical cancer. And I took it upon myself to go to her and say, hey, this is, you know, I'm not circumcised. And this is how I can affect your life, you know. And I could be the reason that you don't see our daughters graduate. I could be the reason you don't see our daughters get married. And she didn't even know about it, you know. And I think that's what the head of the house does. You know, you foresee danger before it even arises, you know. You protect before, there's even a war. And that's what I think as men we need to get out and do. And we always, have these pillow talks at home. And we say, we love you, we love you. It's time that we prove ourselves that we actually mean what we say during pillow talk.
Our strength as Muzansi, it's unity. When we are united together across races, across age groups, across geographic locations, we are able to achieve a lot. So the prevention revolution will only be successful if South Africans tap into that which they do best, Ubuntu.
You know what you do, honestly. You know that you have to abstain from sex, and you know that if you are unable to abstain, you must use a condom. At every available opportunity, with every sex activity, you must use a condom. And I don't think there are many South Africans who don't know that. I think they know it, only that they don't want to do it. If you are a male, there's free medical male circumcision, which will also help you further. So there is a broad range of choices that people can use. If you have been raped, we offer pre-exposure post-exposure prophylaxis for women who have been raped or molested. So there's a broad range of chances from which people can choose.
It's time. It's time for us not to talk, but to act.
There are 5 pillars for the prevention revolution. Programs for adolescent girls and young women that focus on comprehensive sex education, economic empowerment, and gender-based violence. Evidence and human rights-based programs for all key populations. Strengthen condom and behavior change programs. Voluntary medical male circumcision. And prep to population groups at risk.